afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the New York State Bridge Authority meeting for September 2016. But before we start our meeting today, we're going to do our committee reports. We have the minutes of the Audit and Finance Committee, so we'll start with the Audit Committee, which is Chairman Roger Higgins.
Move to adopt the minutes of the Audit Committee.
Somebody a second, what's on the committee?
Just a point of clarification, Mr. Chairman. We're actually sitting as a committee of the whole today, acting on behalf of both the Audit and the Finance Committee, so any member could move anything they want.
So a second?
I'll second.
All right. Also, as I said, it's the Audit Committee and Finance Committee, which the Audit Committee consists of Chairman Higgins, Commissioner Kozlowski, and Commissioner Stanton. The Finance Committee is Chairman Rob Dressel, myself, and this is Jablonski.
You want to get one vote back in, though?
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
I think because the topics on each committee, why don't we just have we're having a joint meeting, and why doesn't Roger Higgins chair it all along, and because it's all.
Okay. Again, just point of clarification, it is the committee of the whole, which means all the members of the board are acting on behalf of both committees. So,
Chairman Higgins, would you kindly do that?
Certainly. Do we need a vote on the Audit Committee meeting minutes? I believe we have a vote on that. Right? All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, passed. Now we would like to have a motion on approval of the minutes of the June 16th Finance Committee meeting. So moved. Moved. Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Okay. Next will be a presentation on the operating budget, bridge system net revenues, and capital program.
The staff has put together a budget presentation that was sent to the board separate from the packets. Hopefully everyone got a chance to look at it. The first tab is the slide you're about to see, and Brian will walk you through the budget. The first slide is the budget variances between fiscal year 2016 and fiscal year 2017. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Mr. Bishop.
So as is typical, the authority prepares an operating budget consistent with past practice. It's prepared in a very conservative manner. What you're looking at is the 2016 modified budget, which is the most recent budget revision as compared to the proposed 2017. Going through some of the variances, we'll start first with the dollars. You'll notice that the highest increases are in salaries. Salaries is up. Approximately half of it's due to contractually obligated salary increases associated with, obviously, again, the previously in place CSEA contract. The other half is associated with some staffing increases. The authority has added 5 positions over the past year. 1 compliance specialist, 1 toll systems support person, an ABM at one of our bridges, a maintenance position, and a command center position. The part-time positions have also increased. We went from a full-time equivalent count of approximately 157 to 169. The part-timers increased due to higher volume at certain periods at some of our facilities, in which we see in the current year toll revenues are substantially up. The next item up is benefits. Although the dollar value is not that significant, it does mask the net change of 2 variables, one being GASB 68, which I'll talk about later in one of the other presentations, which actually declined from year to year, and the other being health insurance increases. To continue, electronic tolls is fairly high, obviously 152 the next highest number. That's associated with rate increases and an Easy Pass conversion increase year over year. Lastly would be depreciation at 197 there. Basically that is associated with updates to our equipment fleet that we've done over the last couple of years. In terms of percentages, the high percentages would be in utilities and then again down in maintenance, or to some degree, 9.9%. Those are associated with the authority expecting a return to normal winter weather patterns. In the prior year, the winter was very warm, and we really didn't have a whole lot of snow events to really cover for. Lastly would be other down here, it went up 12.4%. That's in anticipation of some equipment purchases associated with the command center in the coming year. Other than that, if we move to the next...
Frank, maintenance there is contract maintenance, am I right, rather than staff costs?
This is not contract maintenance as it relates to repairs, rehabilitation, and reconstruction. This relates more to activities like sand, salt, that kind of thing.
But it's not salaries.
It is not salaries. That is correct. I'm sorry. Yes. Okay. Salaries would all be in the top line. The only portion of salaries that would appear in repairs, rehabilitation, and reconstruction is the portion of salaries that we reclassify into the capital program, and that's not reflected on any one of those line items. Okay, toll revenue. Toll revenue, we're expecting an increase of approximately 3.9%. This is low relative to the roughly 5% that everyone sees on the monthly reports that are being given to the board. The reason for that lower percentage is a good portion of the increase for this year was derived from, again, very few snow events. Okay, while we continue to see, we'll call it organic growth in the traffic volumes, which we're going to assume remain flat coming into 17, we do have to recognize that in the current year, we're starting to see a couple months, I believe July, where 3 bridges, the toll revenues were actually lower, but overall we're expecting approximately 3.9%. The reason for the difference between 2016 and 2017 is, although we anticipate continued lower interest rates in the coming year in 2017, we're ramping up our capital program, and we'll have significant expenditures at 2 facilities, RIP and Newburgh Beacon, which will lower our availability of funds to invest. Okay. Moving on, if you look at E-ZPass, our market share for E-ZPass continues to go and improve. While it's declined to some extent since the toll schedule revision, which created the differential between cash and E-ZPass, we still go and see a approximately 1% per year movement, or conversion rate, if you will. This gives us opportunity as it relates to staffing costs, where I appreciate that when we're sitting at approximately 30% E-ZPass, or cash rate, every 3% decline is a 10% reduction in cash. This allows us to do certain staffing maneuvers, but on our smaller facilities, as we've reached the lowest point to safely operate the facilities in terms of staffing, it kind of limits us in terms of being able to implement any more cost savings measures.
And it also drives the electronic toll collection costs that Brian mentioned before in terms of the number of E-ZPass transactions.
Okay, this chart is a little bit ugly. More or less, it kind of breaks down how we operate in a 20-year program to give a broad overview. This is included for administrative purposes for the authority. You'll notice that toll revenues through 2019 remain the same. In 2020, we expect a 44% increase in toll revenue as the result of a toll schedule revision. This would be a mid-year revision, and it would be in place the full year in 2021. This revision is necessary to support new money debt. Okay, going over to operating expenses, the first 4 years there, you'll notice, are derived directly from the budget and financial plan, which we will review later, adjusted for expenses specific considered resolution operating expenses, resulting in net revenue. Other income remains largely flat. This consists of some smaller activities such as fiber leasing, advertising, and of course investment income. Moving over to debt service, you'll notice in 2021 debt service increases to approximately $16 million. Effectively, this is to finance the new money debt associated with supporting the capital program. The assumption in this plan is that we will see interest rates someplace in the neighborhood of 4.5%, approximately a 60% increase from the 2.82% total interest cost, or TIC, for the 2012 series debt. This is really overall to support the $80 million associated with new money for the next few projects. If you'll notice, in 2020 we show 80.7, or 2021 we show 80.7 million in the capital program. This is resulting in an $80 million project to redeck the north span of the Newburgh Beacon Bridge. Under 2025, the capital program goes back up to 91.9, it's actually this number, I apologize. So 41.9. In 2021, it was 35, and the 80 million is spread through those 3 years. The 2025, the 41.9 million is to redeck the Bear Mountain Bridge. Actually, the contract is expected to come in at approximately 30 million. In 2027, with the 26,948, we're, 58,955. Those 3 years there, we're including 40 million to redeck the Rip Van Winkle Bridge, and in 2028, the 56 million starts a $40 million effort to go and redeck the Mid-Hudson Bridge. So all of these items, by itself, we need the debt or the new money to be able to cover the Newburgh Beacon Bridge that will allow us on a pay-go basis to cover the redecking of the other 3 bridges in the subsequent years. Also, what should be noted is debt service. Obviously, we have a resolution required 1.75% debt service coverage ratio. So net revenues times 1.75 is the minimum.
And just for the board's clarification, no need to interrupt you. That is a factor that is required under the bond covenant, which basically gauges if the toll revenue is sufficient to have a pay-go plan, meet debt service, and that's how we're measured by the bonding agencies.
So ratings agencies would look at this, and that is why, from a projection standpoint, we're trying to go and keep our projected debt service coverage reasonably high. When we keep it in the mid-2s as a minimum, we go and will likely continue to receive our favorable bond rating, which translates into lower interest costs.
Prior to the last toll adjustment in 2012, we had flirted dangerously close to just being at the limit of that, and there was actually a note in previous financial statements that basically said that, due to some way that we were doing the write-offs between capital and operating was inflating that number, and that was like a warning sign then. But since the toll restructuring, all those issues have gone away.
Do we have a guaranteed coverage ratio in the resolution?
Yes.
It's 1.75.
175.
That's the bond, but then the ratings agencies doesn't like to see go below 2.
The ratings agencies definitely take notice as you approach 2.
And compared to the other authorities, like I think the Thruway has 1.5, and I'm not sure what the NPA is, but
So
we have a higher standard to meet.
Our resolution is
It's going to have a
considered,
negative number.
Well, that's not what they really were at. They just have a standing.
our resolution is considered very strong relative to our counterparts in the industry, and it's what allows us to have one of the highest bond ratings of any self-supported and tolling authority
in the country.
Okay, that's the end of my presentation.
Jeff will take over this part. The capital plan is obviously broken up by facility, but part of the maintenance philosophy behind everything we do is looking at the bridges in their respective components, and each component has a life cycle, and this shows basically based on those life cycles of the different components why basically the theory behind the capital plan and how projects are laid out and what we're looking at going outward. So as you can see, and Jeff, feel free to join in at any point, see the different components of the electrical system, deck replacements, and the expected probable useful life of those components. And when we feel going out into the future, when we believe we're going to have to do those various projects, like those types of scopes of work. And as you can see, that's how we build our 20-year plan around that chart. Chris, can you go to the next chart? Just for the board's perspective, this is the historical bridge deck replacements that we've done. There's all the bridges in the years that they were constructed and opened. And the last time there was a replacement, as we know, our most recent replacement was the Newburgh Beacon Bridge South Span in 2015. And, as Brian mentioned in his presentation, our big project in the near future will be the Newburgh Beacon North Span, which we've been able to do some, I would say, better than a Band-Aid approach this year in doing some projects underneath the north span to sustain it from having punch holes, and our ability to now push that project out a year or two versus when we were originally scheduled to do this job. Jeff, you want to add anything else to that?
Yeah, I mean, the Band-Aids Joe's talking about, we're putting some deck shoring underneath the bridge in areas where we would have anticipated some punch through so that we can avoid that repair.
Next
Jeff,
year.
why is the north span $20 million less than south span?
Well, the north span's only 3 lanes wide, whereas the south span's 4 lanes wide. So it's quite a bit less deck area.
But we're also anticipating some price inflation between 2012 and 2021 when we go out the door.
Why are we waiting until 2021 if we're getting punch holes now?
We didn't have the debt capacity to do what we needed to do both. The north span debt punch-throughs were being addressed a different way than we are doing it now. Before, we were just reacting to punch-throughs. So we then developed this plan and that the board approved, and we're implementing a better fix. You want to get more into the fix and how we're able to buy more time with what you're doing?
Yeah, basically by putting up shoring underneath the deck, we're going to hopefully prevent any further deterioration over top of where we're putting the shoring. The shoring's being located where we're seeing water penetrating through the deck, where we're seeing some under deck spalling or above deck spalling, so that it should help prevent punch throughs, and it also will make, if the punch through were to happen or try to happen, it will facilitate repair work.
Explain to the board the how you're going out between stringer to stringer, is it, or?
Yeah, what's happened between stringers, you'll have a spalling in the deck and then a punch through, and then originally the fix was to just repair that deteriorated concrete area, and what happened, they found a few years ago, was that then that repair area, since it wasn't properly supported, would start breaking apart. So now we repair from stringer to stringer. We take out the old concrete and put in new concrete. So that's the fix. The preventative measure is to support the deck from underneath so that we don't have to do that, and make it till 2021.
Right. Then we have a statutory debt cap, and if we were to do it earlier, with the amount of debt we would have, we would need to have some sort of amendment to the debt cap.
In addition to that, while we could go and work around the debt cap via pay-go, it would, whether we took additional debt or not, it still would require a substantial total increase to support.
Pay-go, you mean pay as you go.
Pay as you go.
Pay as we go,
Right.
yes. Okay, so to
Essentially,
support
it's borrowing capacity. Statutory borrowing capacity.
Right.
Right.
It's the way
Driving the calendar.
we're trying to buy some time in a more planned way than being reactive as we had in the past, where once the punch hole came, we're in the middle of the winter and we're doing a very crude fix. The guys went out there and analyzed, let's anticipate where we believe punch throughs would happen, replace that section now, and buy us time till we get to a more, get more life out of the current toll structure, and then buy more capacity in the debt service. Chris? Okay, and this is another major expenditure for the Bridge Authority historically, is our lead abatement and repainting program. Again, Newburgh, the North Span, was our most recent facility that we finished that job in 2014, and you can see the historical dates of all the de-leading programs we have done thus far.
So is there more to be done, or is this it?
For de-leading?
The main areas left to be done would be the east approach at the Mid-Hudson Bridge and the approaches at both approaches at the Kingston Langcliffe Bridge.
Okay.
For reference, it cost $2.5 million to build the Rip Van Winkle Bridge, and $17 million for lead abatement.
And another major component of the capital plan is our ongoing suspension cable inspection repair. which, basically explains why the Bridge Authority is able to maintain its bridges in perpetuity. This type of proactive inspection and repair, when you hear of other facilities around the country that don't have the age that our facilities do, and yet our bridges are in much better condition. And this is some of those expenditures outlined. The average of these investigations are about $1.5 million a bridge. And so far, Hudson and Bear Mountain have had their main cables rehabilitated to the cost of about $10 million. Chris? Another major issue that the state is looking at, especially from the DOT department point of view, and through the governor has been very focused on pier scour projects and what has been going on with all the agencies. And again, NYSBA is ahead of the curve here. You can see the historical projects that we've done in Kingston, RIP, and we do every 5 years an inspection on the scouring of the piers, and we do a yearly bathymeter reading around the piers in-house to constantly see how we're doing.
That's inclusive of the welcome, right?
Yeah. Right.
And before you today is the 5-year capital plan for 2017 through 2021. Just to give the board a historical perspective, since we developed our new century of service plan and with the new toll structure adopted in 2012, year to date we've spent roughly about $160 million in capital investments throughout the Bridge Authority, and over the next 5 years the board will be investing about another $125.5 million in bridge rehabilitation. Chris? Okay, and just again, bridge by bridge, over the last 5 years, we've invested most of the money, about $123 million, into Newburgh for the de-leading and the redecking of the south span. And going forward in next year, next chart. Going forward, we are going to invest about $47.75 million in projects for the Newburgh Beacon project. If you notice, even though we've been talking about the $80 million bridge replacement for the north span, the last year of this, quote, 5-year capital program will be the first year of that project, so that's why you see $22.75 million of the $80 million project. As Brian mentioned before, that program will be a 3-year project. So the capital plan includes the first year of that project. Chris? And Mid-Hudson, there will be about $11.75 million investment into that facility, painting, cable inspections, and other bridge paving. Next, please. Rip Van Winkle has a $6.5 million investment. Most of it actually occurring right now with the bridge railing and sidewalk replacement project. And we have a NOLA chip overlay coming in 2019, electrical upgrade, and bridge pier painting. And finally, Kingston Rhine Cliff Bridge, significant projects will be about $5 million over the next 5 years. And then Bear Mountain will invest about $4 million of our capital program into that. And that's the capital plan and budget items. So can we take the lights, please? And Brian, you can continue with the budget and financial plan, please.
All right. Unfortunately, I apologize. I inadvertently stuck in your packages the incorrect narrative, actually last year's narrative, the budget and financial plan. The numbers are all the same. Nothing has changed. I ask you to just swap those out. I think I gave you one. Here, I'll give you a couple more first down.
Let somebody else go.
Very good. Apologize for that. More or less, this basically is the statutorily required report format that we are required to publish in 5 separate places. The authority typically does so at each of its 4 bridges and at available headquarters. It's available for public inspection. The authority is required to leave it available for public inspection for a period of 30 days. Traditionally, what we've done is we put it out based on this September board meeting. We leave it available for public inspection, and we bring it back to the full board for approval in the month of November. Other than that, I think we've gone through most of the elements of the plan. when we discussed the budget in the previous presentation. If anyone else has any other questions related to it.
Any questions? Roger?
No.
I mean,
You're in charge.
Oh, all right, I have to address any questions.
You stepped down that quick.
Well, so we'll move on to the internal audit plan and engagement letter.
I think we should go.
Yeah, you're gonna make a motion to approve the budget and financial plan.
Send it to
So that I
the
can
board
publish
for
it.
final approval at the board meeting.
So move. That's the one?
That's the one.
Okay. That's what we were having a little discussion on. There is a resolution attached to this, so do I have a motion? So moved. Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Just to clarify, this is recommending when you guys come into session with the board, adopt it, even though you are the board.
Seeing no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Now
Next
you're
up,
up, Brian.
very good. Next item up is the operating budget, bridge system net revenues, as required by Section 2801 of the Public Authorities Law and Section 7.13 of our bond resolution. We'll go through quickly. I'll try to keep this brief, as I did lay out the narrative, and this one didn't change. Basically, total revenues, as I indicated before, we're seeing a little in excess of 3.9% over the prior year. The 3.9% is trying to be conservative and under the assumption that our percentage growth increase year over year will continue to decline because we saw so much benefit in the beginning of the year. Investment income we already discussed will be down as we spend more next year. On the capital program, miscellaneous income is going to remain fairly static. The items to note for the more informative element of this relates to the differences between the resolution operating expenses and the operating budget. So basically, as we go through, certain operating budget expenditures are excluded from the resolution operating expenses. The authority's overall operating expenses, which were $29.3 million in 2015, are expected to rise 12% or 3.5% in $30.5 million to $32.8 million in 2016. A lot of those are non-cash basis and are excluded from resolution operating expenses as indicated. Resolution operating expenses were $24.6 million in 2015, are expected to rise 11.5% or $2.8 million, total $27.4 million in 2016. To go through it, salaries operating expenses we discussed before, they will go up, $0.9 million over prior year. This again relates to contractually obligated pay increases, and secondly, some staffing increases. Employee retirement. Employee retirement is a little different, similar to last year. Under last year's accounting guidelines, the authority was required to implement GASB 68. GASB 68 requires the authority to recognize on its financial statements a liability representing the unfunded portion of the New York State and local retirement system. That amount in 2015 resulted in a net change in asset values that actually pulled down operating expenses because there was a gain in asset values at the close of the year, March 31, 2015. In 2016, there's actually a substantial loss, okay? That number this year, instead of being a few $100,000 gain or credit to operating expenses, this year is expected to be a $500,000 loss. Okay? Consistent with prior year, the authority does not feel it's in a position to go and forecast where the stock market's going to go and will not reflect in its budget an estimate of what the impact of GASB 68 will be, will only reflect its anticipated payment to the state and local retirement system. That accounts for the big differences between resolution operating expenses and normal operating expenses. Again, the $500,000, 2.1 versus 1.6. Going down further, health insurance. This is the second area which contains a GASB required adjustment, if you will. Health insurance, we're required to go and include an adjustment for GASB 45, post-employment benefits. That amount for 2016 is expected to be approximately $2.4 million. We don't have an actuarial review for next year, but we're assuming a similar amount. Again, operating expenses are $55.9 million, higher than the resolution operating expenses of $3.4 million. Going further, workers' comp increases quite a bit as the authority, due to some more recent claims experience lost its 5% discount. The authority will have a better handle on where its 2016 and subsequent 2017 expenses will come in once we receive our policy renewal for this year. We've had a better season this year in terms of being able to do hazard work, so our painting workers' comp rates will apply more than they did in the prior year. Maintenance repairs. This is another situation where we're expecting an increase. We're assuming that the weather will return to a more normal pattern. Last year, the fourth quarter produced pretty much nothing in terms of weather, and very similar to the first quarter of 2016. We would go and assume that we would return to a normal winter weather pattern. In addition, we had some higher costs this year because we had a lot of air conditioning usage in the toll plazas. Electronic toll costs. These account for differing percentages relative to operating and resolution operating expenses. They're going up $0.2 million. This is consistent with the increased utilization of EasyPass, and this is based off both of an increase in the cost per transaction to process, which is driven by the usage day formula, which some of you may be familiar with, and the other portion of it is we continue to see a roughly 1% rise in EasyPass conversion. To continue, we go and see equipment depreciation, more or less equipment depreciation. Equipment and depreciation are both excluded from resolution operating expenses. Depreciation's higher, as I previously mentioned. We're updating our fleet. We're depreciating that over the applicable fighter time span and related equipment. In addition to that, equipment is completely excluded, and we're doing some incremental investments in the command center for capability. The difference between public authorities law and resolution operating expenses I've kind of outlined as we've gone through this. You'll note on the final page of the estimated 2016-17 bridge system net revenues that net revenue requirement is 19.7 in 2016 and 19.669 in 2017. You'll also notice that really the last number on the estimated bridge system net revenues, we have an excess anticipated for 2016 of $12.751 million and 10.946, 16 and 17 respectively. Basically what I'm saying with these documents is that the authority comfortably meets its 1.75 debt service coverage ratio, and there's no issue under the requirements of the resolution that would necessitate us to initiate a toll schedule revision for the current year and the coming year.
Any questions? We have a resolution attached.
This will be brought to the board, yes.
Yep. To bring this to the board. Motion.
Move we submit it to the board.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Brian, up again, huh?
Okay, the next up.
The Energizer button, just keep going.
Yeah.
Okay, so budget financial plan.
Internal audit?
The internal audit engagement. So basically back in, I believe it was June, the board awarded to our current internal auditor the second contract for this service that we've gone out to. Part of the activity is for the audit committee to review the audit plan and the engagement letter. It's consistent with prior years. I have no incremental recommendations. It's really should the audit committee have any recommendations.
I just, in reading this, I was just thoroughly confused between the independent accountant and the internal auditor.
Okay.
May I suggest we use the term, and let's discuss this, internal control system auditor.
Okay.
Because we're really not auditing the authority, or if it's finances, we're auditing the internal control system under this contract.
Yes, this is a portion of the authority's system of internal control review. We can change the terminology.
I think we'd want just to differentiate it from the, when we normally use the term auditor, we're thinking of the EFPR.
Actually, EFPR Group is the financial
Is the
statement
financial
audit.
audit.
Yes,
That's correct.
Okay, so
That's what, when I hear internal auditor, I think of that audit. So,
because typically, all right, yes.
yeah, I want to I'm suggesting internal control system audit.
So are you suggesting an amendment to change?
Just two words. On the first line, where it says, the authority ran an RFP for an internal auditor, I suggest we say internal control system auditor. And that's fine. We use use that term and resolve it.
So we have an amendment to change internal audit plan to, what is it again?
I think it's just the cover
Yeah,
memo.
Just a cover memo, we don't need to, yeah.
It's not in the resolution.
Right, it's not in the resolution.
It is in the
Well, no,
resolution.
it's-
It is
On
in
the
the
resolution, it is in
resolution.
the resolution, and the name of the contract that went out the door was for internal auditor.
Next year, we're going to change the name.
Fair enough.
We're all agreed.
So there's
I
no
can accept
amendment at this
that.
point in time, so let's vote on the.
Can I just ask a question,
Yeah.
because I'm a nitpicker? On page 3, it says, we have selected 2 additional areas for general process review. I didn't know 2 additional areas relative to what?
So the internal control review is based upon kind of dividing up the process of the authority to see which ones are business critical and which are less business critical or present the greatest number of risk. So what they do is we've agreed upon certain process classifications.
So that's the major function, that's our chart?
Those are the major functions.
Okay,
So
so-
what they're doing is they're going to grab, in addition to the 2 that they were going to do,
For
which are
2016.
for 2016, they're going to grab 2 additional processes
At
to do
random.
later on.
Okay.
It's really more of a random thing, and over the course of a 3-year plan, they hit every business
Okay.
process, or every major process.
All right, just wasn't clear. Thank
Any other
you.
questions for Brian? If not, on the resolution, is a motion?
I move.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes.
Okay, last up from
Independent accountant services, sir.
the committee perspective. In July 2016, the authority advertised a request proposal for independent accountant services, our financial statement auditor. We received 2 proposals, one from EFPR Group, formerly Toski, the authority's auditor for the last, I believe, 2 cycles, and the Bonadio Group. The proposals were substantially different in cost. Considering that we've been satisfied with Toski and now EFPR's services for the last 2 cycles, I recommend that the authority award the 3 years at $16,900, which is the same amount for the last 2 cycles, to EFPR Group.
So we have a resolution to follow up with Brian's recommendation to hire Toski. Is there a motion?
Move.
Second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Resolution passes. Is there any other business to come before the committee of the whole today? Seeing none, motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Second, all in favor?
Second.
Aye. Meeting adjourned. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, did a heck of a job.
Give me a little more notice next time.
Little more notice? Okay. We'll give you another 30 seconds. We're going to start our New York State Bridge Authority meeting September 15th. We have amended board meeting before us. The only thing that is deleted in underneath business items, administration, human resources, we have none.
We struck the resolution for now.
Just want to make a motion with the amended.
So,
Second.
Any discussion? If not, roll call. All in favor,
Aye.
Aye.
Adopt the regular board meeting minutes of August 18, 2016.
so moved.
Second.
Second.
And before we go any further in executive session, we want to introduce our commissioners. I'd be remiss if I didn't do that. Commissioner Rod Dressel, Deputy Director Terrace Sullivan, our Commissioner Diane Jumlaski, our Commissioner who did such an excellent job previously on all those resolutions on the Audit Committee, Mr. Roger Higgins, Commissioner Harry Stanton, Counsel Carl Whitback, Executive Director Joseph Ruggiero, and myself as Chairman Richard Gary. Saying that, make a motion to go into executive session to discuss the security matter.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any other discussion? If not, roll call. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We will get out shortly. Thank you.
Can I just cut the tape? Everybody can stay.
Looking at our executive session, there was no action taken, no vote taken. So we continue with our regular business meeting. There's no administration, human resources, engineering and maintenance. Mr. Jeff Wright, please.
We did the minutes? We did the minutes?
We did the minutes.
We did it.
Before we
Good afternoon.
introduced everybody.
Well, we'd like to continue on with our, coming out of executive session with purchasing some new cameras. We'd like to get 28 axis pan tilt zoom cameras, 4 fixed cameras, and 1 floor camera, one of the thermal cameras that you were talked about. The cost for the cameras will be $66,642.95, and then the floor camera is another $22,280.85 for a total for all the cameras of $88,923.80. And this is in our budget of the capital program.
Some of,
Joe, second, Jeff, you used the word cameras here and camera. There's only one floor camera.
There is only one, yeah, so that should be just.
That's a very expensive camera.
Yes.
You're going to take very good care of it, right?
Yeah.
What does FLOR stand for?
Forward-looking infrared.
Forward-looking infrared. Okay.
That's the type of camera you saw initially showing the Anchorage area
Yeah.
at the Bear Mountain Bridge
Okay.
in the middle of the nighttime there.
Any other questions? If not, roll call. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Jobs in progress.
At the Rip Van Winkle Bridge, the sidewalk and railing replacement project is on schedule for completion in December of next year. The contractor is currently replacing the traffic railing up there right now. At Walkway over to Hudson, the railing rehab project is underway, is continuing. The north railing is being rehabilitated right now. The south railing electrical system is being worked on, and all is scheduled for completion in November of this year. At the Mid-Hudson Bridge, the dehumidification project is substantially complete. The Newburgh Beacon Bridge steel repair project is, the contractor's currently installing the underdeck shoring, and we're on schedule with that project also, and that's it.
move to accept the jobs in progress report.
Second? Brian?
Second.
Any questions? Thank you, Jeff. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Next, Brian? The resolution we talked about in the audit committee, finance committee earlier, right?
Oh, no, this is different.
This is different.
Well,
I
the
try to keep it
NYSBA and
interesting.
the other ones are.
Boston Whaler.
Okay. The first up is the monthly or the routine investment report. There are 6 investments in the month of August, all reflected on the attached. The authority currently holds a balance of $44.6 million in the maintenance reserve fund. The yield, or interest income and yield for the month is reflected, or the month of July, we went up 2/10, so, or 2/100, so let's say, excuse me, 0.92 from 0.90. Nothing really unusual.
Move to accept the investment report.
Second.
Questions? Roll call, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, next up is an item that was brought to us. The New York State Police expressed an interest in a 1987 Boston Whaler that we acquired as part of a government surplus a few years ago. The boat was registered to the authority after we did some rehabilitation to it. Recently, when the state police came to us, the boat really is not well suited to the authority's needs and the ongoing costs associated with maintaining the boat as it sits idle so much. It's been fairly expensive. The state police is looking to go and take the boat over from us and still offer us utilization of the boat on an as-needed basis. Attached is a copy of a MOU between the authority and the New York State Police that would allow us to go and utilize the boat on an as-needed basis, along with some routine maintenance activities that we were previously using it for. Should the board choose to agree or approve this agreement, A resolution is attached. The board would be surplusing the boat itself and the trailer.
Brian, do we know where they're going to dock it? It says in the vicinity of
I believe
authority
it's up by
bridges.
Kingston or Rip, correct? I forget.
Kingston, I think, it's in the roundabout.
Up the Rondo? All right.
Do we have any other floating craft?
We have
Submarine.
Floating.
We have a Bridge Authority custom-made boat.
We still have the big the mule.
The mule.
Yes.
Yes, we have the mule and all of the little outboard motor boats.
Has a rowboat, and then we've got the mule.
Oh, they each have a rowboat. That's
That's for initial,
To get to the piers, yeah.
we know somebody's in trouble.
Any other?
So moved.
So move, second.
Second.
Questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, next up is an item that came out of the committee. It's the audit plan and engagement letter for the internal control systems auditor, I believe.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Last up is the award for BA 2016-08-01 PS for independent accountant services to EFPR Group, also discussed in committee.
So moved.
Second.
Questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
No information on technology, bridge operations.
Good afternoon. One small item today for the board for approval. That is the second quarter throughway bill for Easy Pass expenses in the amount of $971,423.86.
So moved.
Second.
Should pay the throughway.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That's it.
Appreciate it.
Didn't even get warm.
Joseph, the executive reports.
You have the executive director's monthly expense report, as well as the August 2016 traffic and revenue analysis report, the August 2016 Easy Pass sales analysis report. Questions?
Any questions? Nope.
Just want to accept and file.
We'll do historical bridges. Oh, that was good.
Yes.
All right, to accept Joe's report. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Tara?
Thank you, Chairman. The Historic Bridges of the Hudson Valley Board of Trustees met on August 18th to review both old and new business and to formally welcome our new director, Kathy Burke. Additionally, at that meeting, the board voted unanimously to elect Harry Stanton as a new HVHV trustee, and we're thrilled that his historic knowledge will add to the trustees as they stand. The only other things that I'd like to highlight from my report is that a grant was submitted by the Skywalk Group for the Skywalk project, and we're anxiously waiting to hear how that fared. If it is granted, then that will fund the Skywalk project from the Thomas Cole House to the bridge, and then the bump outs on the bridge. The interpretive signage that is being done by partnering with the Bureau of Historic Sites for New York State has begun. We just met yesterday to design those signs, so we're excited about those. And finally, Kathy Burke is she's hit the ground running, so to speak, as our new director, and she is preparing for school visits. She's reviewing the archive collection, and she has been assisting with the design and gathering of historic information for those interpretive signs. Thank you. Any questions?
Motion to accept her report. Second.
Second.
Any questions for Tara? If not, all in favor, say aye. We don't have to vote on it, do we?
Chance to want to.
Well, we did.
No, we did.
Yeah, thank you.
Presentations of board, old business, new business. We got 3 items. New business. We do it, Joe?
Yes, the Committee of the Whole entertained the 2017-2021 capital plan recommended to the board for its adoption.
Resolutions.
So moved. Second?
Second.
Questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Next.
Again, the committee of the whole recommended to the whole board that the operating budget and net system revenues resolutions be adopted.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Just, there are two separate resolutions. One is for the operating budget, one's for the bridge system revenues. So that's it.
Your motion included both, correct?
It did.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And finally is the government affairs services contract.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions?
I have to abstain on this because of an interest in one of the firms.
Okay. Please note. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And that's all we have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we have before we have an adjournment, we have one of our people who've been with us for 10 years.
As attorney. As attorney. For County Rebecca's squad.
Yes.
They can't represent competitors or...
Correct. They also represent us on a case through one of our carriers.
Just ask me.
Yeah, we can
No
talk.
problem, no problem. I just, before we adjourn today, we have a gentleman who's retiring. He's been with the State Bridge Authority for 10 years. I know he'd like to get up and make a long presentation, and probably a poem or some kind of narrative of some type. But unfortunately, we're going to keep it short. Mr. Bellucci has been an asset to the Bridge Authority. I think everyone can attest to that. He'll be sorely missed in more ways than one. And we wish you good luck, you and your family good luck in moving out of the area, going to a different state. But there again, you have helped this Bridge Authority in many different ways, and I'm sure whoever takes your place is going to be very capable, but you're going to be sorely missed. So, saying that, good luck.
Thank you.
That's all you get.
No.
All you get.
No. We need a little bit more. 10 years, that's all you have?
Yep, that's all I got.
That's all he's got.
You know he's required.
You know? Sure? Last chance.
I'm good.
All right. You want to send us a letter after you leave?
I'll do that.
Motion to adjourn with our next meeting October 20th, 2016 at 3 o'clock. Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.